Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Europe Talk Solidarity Conference. Now it's time for a very fascinating panel discussion. My name is Annina. I'll be the host of the panel discussion today, and my colleague Elizabeth will be then collecting questions. And we would like to encourage everyone, both online and here in the plenary, to ask for questions or think of questions for our wonderful panelists. So we'll be looking at solidarity from a variety of perspectives here in this panel discussion. Here with us on the panel, we have the privilege of having Ms. Litewka-Anttolainen, who works as the expert on equality and equity at the Finnish Peace Education Institute. And then we have Sara Nyman here, who is a Finnish climate change activist, an expert in youth participation, and also currently working as the director of the Turku Young Greens. Also studying political sciences while working, so a lot of stuff happening there. And then we also, as the third panelist, we have the honor of having Dr. Jekatyerina Dunajeva, Katja, with us, who works as the assistant professor at the Institute of International Studies and Political Science at the Pazmany Peter Catholic University. And she's also a research fellow at the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, at the Center for Social Sciences and Institute for Political Science. Yes, so we have an actual all-female panel here today. Thank you for joining us here in Helsinki. And also, again, welcome to all of our online viewers and everyone here in the plenary. And again, I would like to encourage everyone to think of good questions and thought-provoking questions as well. And also, if you're tweeting or using any other platform on the social media, please use the hashtag #EuropeTalksSolidarity with capital E, T and S. Excellent. So, let's get started. So, the first question, the first round of questions is about the different perspectives on solidarity. So, Anna, let's start with you. What is your key perspective to solidarity? What comes to your mind when thinking about solidarity?
Thank you. So I would like, because as you said, I work in Finland for Peace Education Institute, and we are working with various young people, groups of young people and organizations, supporting them to create their own solidarity ideas and to apply for solidarity projects from the European Solidarity Corps program. So I would like to present the key perspectives, what I learned from those workshops, from the young people, from those wonderful encounters, what we have with young people during this journey of the developing and creating solidarity ideas. So, may I start? Yes. So in this workshop, we encourage young people to create their own solidarity ideas based on their dreams and sort of utopia for a better world. And we ask young people what kind of change they want to create, and with whom they want to start to make this revolution with. So I would like to share at the beginning the importance of understanding what solidarity means. Because first, when we reached out, when we contacted the different organizations, youth workers, youth counselors, and we asked them to join us and to develop with their young people those solidarity projects ideas. So first, like 3 years ago, when I started this work, what I heard very often from those adults that no, the solidarity is so. It may be so difficult to understand for young people. It's a bit abstract. It might be too challenging to for our young people. We heard also a sentence like, I quote, that our young people maybe they are not yet ready to show and to achieve solidarity. So I was very surprised, and then I understood that how important is to promote also this concept and this process of solidarity within organizations first, within educators, because when we met then young people, of course we learn immediately that they know what solidarity means, and they know what kind of change they wish to happen. And so first of all, the most important aspects of solidarity are identified by young people was support, mutual support, learning from each other, creating sense of belonging and cohesion between themselves. So this is the main perspectives what young people wanted to create within their own solidarity projects. So that's what it was all about. It was about unity and staying together, according to those young people. And I can give some example that it can be this question what solidarity means for young people. It can be as simple and as important as asking simple questions as how are you right now? What do you feel? What do you need? And those questions, what I just said, is they are a real example of the wonderful way one project idea was born, where a group of young people they said after this corona COVID epidemic restrictions and isolations, they just wanted to meet the other young people, ask them, how do you feel right now? What do you need right now? And then the project was about to offering support with different hobby activities and etc. etc. So as simple as powerful. Powerful because when we truly listen, this support in solidarity projects, in young people solidarity projects means tackle discrimination and promoting equality, tackle loneliness and building a more connected society, fighting discriminations, ableism, racism, and etc. etc. So this is this one perspective. So what young people, what they believe, what they want that solidarity means for them.
Thank you, Anna. That was a really strong start for this panel. Moving on to Sara, you are also a youth participation activist and also working a lot with climate change. What's your perspective, also thinking about what Anna just said?
Yes, thank you, and nice to be here with you, talk about the solidarity. So my background is in climate activism and youth climate movement. I have been a Finnish youth climate delegate at the United Nations and now of the Vice President of Finland Climate Policy Roundtable, which is a Finnish government's new innovation to add more inclusive and solidarity to climate policy in Finland. So I talk about this because I think it's the very important part of it, what I see when I think the solidarity. I think it's in the heart of the climate, or it should be, but it's not all. So I check my main terms. Solidarity for next generations, solidarity for youth people. I think it's very important part of our solidarity movement and our climate policy. Exactly for minorities and vulnerable people and other people who are in the heart of the climate. When we talk about climate, we talk about the very small people. So our society is very large. I think that we don't have climate policy without solidarity. It's in the it is our policy and it should be everywhere. And for one point, I think that youth climate movement is a good example of very solidarity movement and very solidarity in globally. I think it's something that we can learn and talk about lots of more global movement, and it gives me some hope that the solidarity is bigger and bigger issue also in the climate movement. Yes.
Thank you, Sara. So already building up to the importance of youth participation when talking about solidarity in general and in any relation, also bringing young people to the core of the climate movement, and also kind of making sure, I mean, there's a good example of seeing solidarity within this movement and this particular perspective already. Very intriguing. Katja, what does this bring to your mind? What is your perspective adding on to what you just heard?
I would like to add a little bit of a theoretical perspective to
Please do.
Which is all I can do here. But and also building on to the previous speakers. So I would evoke maybe Emil Durkheim, who is somebody probably most of you have heard of. So he said that all societies imply a form of solidarity. And that is interesting because then Durkheim and actually other social scientists have inquired further and asked, what are societies then? What is solidarity then? And I think part of what we're doing here is creating a new set of knowledge to define what solidarity means. And why this is important, and again, I think there is much to also learn or be inspired from social science literature, is because what these societies were, or how this collective consciousness, sense of belonging has historically been defined, how these imagined communities, and here I'm talking about Benedict Anderson, have been imagined, is through shared knowledge that was bound by something, and usually country borders. So our societies were built on the premise also of exclusion. We belong because somebody doesn't belong, right? And this is how it has been evolving over time. And what we're seeing now is a step further, because what we've been hearing earlier too is that some of the principles on which what we call transborder solidarity is built is transcending national borders. It's no longer ethnically defined. It's no longer defined by one's national belonging, but these are concepts, principles, values, ideals, or ideas that all of us prescribe to, which is ending discrimination, which is fighting for global justice, which is fighting for or against global environmental degradation and damage that we all will be affected by, regardless of where we live and what our ethnicity is, what our religion is. So what I would like to highlight here is, and again, what Benedict Anderson talks about when he calls it imagined communities, is that we all participate in imagining those communities. And whereas he talks about what binds us together, national paraphernalia, we all learn in school what our national flag is, national anthem is, what are the heroes. And that is the shared knowledge that you share with the people with whom you share a country, let's say, or your local community. And what we're doing here at this meeting also, but in other premises and other venues organized by the European Union, is we elevating some of the principles to transborder platform or channels, and we talk about what are the values that unite us all, that we can fight for together, and then our goal or work that we have to do is do the imagining, do the bonding, is this something that we all can share? Are these the principles that we affiliate with, that we find important? And through that, and again, I'm going back to social science literature, but we no longer think within the boundaries, we elevate it beyond national boundaries, and we say that, yes, we can create a new community, and that is a transborder community that rests on transborder solidarity that now extends beyond the borders. And I see our meeting too as a step towards that, and there's some other events as well, but this is the important work that I think all of us are sharing here.
That's very interesting, and also we've heard a good example of the transnational solidarity movement from the climate change perspective, and I suppose in many other examples as well. And I suppose the question is also that who is welcome to join in this imagining this, whether everybody is on board. Now, before we go into the next round, we have a little activity both for the online viewers and also for everyone here in the plenary, a surprise factor.
Well, actually, we were talking about perspectives, approaches, and it's nice to have people here talking about it, like looking at it from different angles. But I'd like to know, like, talking about different perspectives, just quick intro before we go on. Who of you would like say, yeah, I consider myself rather being an active, and I see myself as activist connected to? Stand up or raise hands, just a bit. Let's see who, let's look around in the room. So then we can see it, or stand up, and just a quick, okay. So I consider myself rather being an activist when it comes to solidarity. Okay, big corner, okay, some, okay. Who of you would rather say, oh, I rather approach solidarity from a theoretical point of view. I'm rather this thinking person looking at concepts. Yeah, there's some of them shaking hands. Okay, it's also nice to have a look around, because it's very important, as we said yesterday, to look at it from different perspectives, and everything's needed, isn't it? So before we go on, might be nice to see who is here, and when we talk about solidarity, which perspective do we look at? I think it's time for next questions.
Yes, I hope the online viewers also raised hands or did something to think about. From, like, it's also a question of identity. How many identities related to solidarity do you have? You can be an activist and a thinker and a researcher all at once, and everything else. Okay, so we've already touched upon a variety of things, but my next question is regarding sort of main challenges. We've identified quite a few perspectives already, but from your perspective, and already having heard what has been said already, what are the main challenges to solidarity from your point of view? Katja, would you like to start?
Sure. Well, to connect it to what I was saying earlier, considering that transborder solidarity that we're talking about here mainly is founded on the premise of inclusion and solidarity between a varieties of groups of people, beliefs, ethnicities, races, anything. We would expect that there must not be any exclusion, right, of that kind of solidarity. But what we're seeing here, and especially looking at what's happening in the last decade or so in our continent, is indeed there is an apprehension or resistance to transborder solidarity for a variety of reasons. Now, it's a challenge, in my personal belief, every time there is a disagreement or the sort of resistant tension. The most important thing to do is understand where it's coming from and why that exists. And we can talk about far-right parties, we can talk about various nationalist movements, we can talk about Euroscepticism. There's really a lot of reasons why we see some resistance to this transborder solidarity building at the level of the European Union. But it is important to approach that task as a challenge and try to resolve that challenge. And part of it, or at least from my perspective, so besides being a political scientist, or because I am a political scientist, I also work with the question or the group of Roma. I wrote actually my research paper for this project on transborder nation building by the Roma group. And this is very informative and in fact instructive to look through a process that has actually been happening at least since the 60s and 70s and try to understand what are the lessons that we can learn and maybe apply to the project of the European Union. Now from the 60s and 70s is actually the institutionalization of this transborder nation building. But the European Union in many ways is a similar project because we see an institutionalized form of transborder nation building here as well. And from, again, my perspective, the key or core concept of the transborder Roma movement was the fact or understanding, recognition that identities cannot negate one another. And I think this is where some of the problems lie in Europe as well. National identities do not need to negate a transborder European identity. One can be a Hungarian and a European. In fact, they are. No? Oh, okay. Oh, that's what it means. I'm sorry. Okay. I also welcome actually thoughts at the end of those who don't agree. But so this is what we're seeing, and there is still tensions. In no way am I trying to idealize something, but looking at or studying the Romani movement, where tensions were found, it was usually on the ground of how do I not lose my identity to become part of this bigger movement? Well, one does not need to lose this identity. And I think this is a conversation that we need to have. This is a conversation that we probably have started to have, but needs to go on in order to be on the same ground, find some kind of mutual understanding that a transborder solidarity, just like a transborder nation building, based on the example of Roma, can only work if we think about our identities. I like to call them as nested identities. I borrowed from somebody. I didn't make it up, unfortunately. But this is basically like a nested doll. You have lots of identities, all of you. Right, you can be a woman, a sister, a mother, but also you can belong to the nation or your local community or a minority within your nation and belong to or feel belonging, sense of belonging to your nation. But then we have something broader than that. And as we talked earlier, the principles of belonging to a European family or European group or nation, if we want to call it that, are the principles that my colleagues do and we are all discussing here. These are not ethnic values. These are not national values. This is something that we all can prescribe to. So in my opinion, the biggest challenge is actually having that conversation. And if that conversation has stopped, or for any reason we discontinued, we need to renew that conversation, because as long as we don't come to the same understanding with everyone, it will be very difficult to continue this project, this imagining, as we talked about it. But once we do, it will become more constructive. It will be deliberative. And this is probably a side conversation, but this deliberative form of belonging, nation building, even deliberative democracy, something that would be core to all of us participating. And in other actually venues also organized by various EU bodies, this is a core question to the youth, actually, is how do we make participation more active? How do we solicit participation from the youth? And this is what we're talking about, too, here. How do we all participate in building transborder solidarity? I can talk forever, so I'll just stop.
Thank you, Katja. Anna, what does this bring to your mind?
Yes, it was very very interesting, and I would like to continue what you said. Coming back to our discussions during our workshop with young people. So we were discussing this: what can be the biggest challenge, and what is when it comes to solidarity. And we are talking about sustainability of solidarity. So how long does it last, in fact? Because it's very easy, like in a time of some crisis or some unjust situation, like to act for a moment together. But then what happened next? What happened? We are talking with young people. What happened when project ends? What happened if and then how our like a sense of solidarity, how is it when it comes towards like a different groups or different people who maybe share like a different values and beliefs, how we can be also open to everyone, how can be more like inclusive in terms of that. And of course we are talking about the challenge as a polarization, because our societies becomes more and more polarized and divided. For example, I am originally from Poland, so I'm looking at the Polish border against whom we are building walls, and then for who we are opening borders then. Because this is also the question of inclusion for sure. and this equality, what you were already talking about. So how we can make sure that the concept of solidarity, our understanding of solidarity, understanding how young people think about solidarity, that it does not exclude anyone, that it concentrates on building connections with the others. And then let's go about this, about the solidarity which demands action, real action in unjust situation, which is not solidarity which goes from, we were talking yesterday about it, which it does not go from top to the bottom. Solidarity where not only the privileged ones who are helping the others, who are helping marginalized group, but how we can include everyone. And this is when we are coming now back for a moment to our workshops and how we were trying to find with young people answers for that. So what can be this tool for solidarity if we are thinking about equality, polarization, and etc. So young people, they are bringing very often that the safer space is a great tool for solidarity. Safer space as a supportive, as a encouraging space, which is also a key for dialogue, to dialogue. And young people, they emphasize very often the need for safer space. And we were talking actually about, let's imagine that we have, because solidarity, the challenge is also the process, that it doesn't stop when, at some moment when project ends, that how it can continue. We are talking that solidarity, that it has to be ongoing process. And young people, they were usually saying that let's imagine that we have here so many projects, and we are creating within this project so many safer spaces, that this society works like a safer space for those who usually feel excluded. Because this safer spaces are important, that everyone can feel safe, included and visible. And the need for solidarity is also related to people's rights to be involved, not to be excluded. And then safer space is also, they are crucial to create change. And then in order to create change, we need solidarity. So we have this this concept of ongoing process of solidarity within the youth-led actions which promote the safer spaces in order to maintain this inclusion for everyone.
Thank you, Anna. I guess we're talking a lot about who's involved and who's welcome. So, Sara, what does this bring to your mind? Adding on to what you just heard.
Yes, if I add this, I think that one of the big problems is when we talk about the solidarity, we talk about between people, but not our relationship to nature or environment and like this. And I think that is the one reason why we have the climate crisis, so what we see today. And it's big problem if we want to solve it, so we want also see our solidarity with very bigger issue than nowadays, because our emissions not stop our borders. So if we climate policy and our solidarity stop when we see our society, and some problems with its consensus, if we think about it happens somewhere else, so it's not Finland think it's happening somewhere. So I think it's big problem and challenge that we are solve. Maybe we should set our backfill our word is our word than in the we and ten, and what someone else do, so what we can do. I think it's the very big change that we can see.
Yes, and I suppose climate change is a very good example where the transnational, all-inclusive, like everyone being on board is very crucial in order to tackle it. It's such a huge challenge, right? So, and a very good example of one, and I suppose we have a bunch of others where we need everyone on board and everyone involved and everybody feeling welcome and feeling that it's safe for them to participate. I suppose the concept of safer space is also very relevant when it comes to who can actually feel safe in participating, who can actually have a say. I mean, it's not a given that everybody would have the right to participate or feel the possibility to actually say out loud what they feel like. Yeah. Again, we're going to do a surprise round, both for the online viewers and for the plenary, just to keep you warm. So, Elizabeth, what do you have in mind now?
Yeah, again, questions for science, for reactions. Listening to challenges. And again, perspectives, different challenges. Let's have a look when we talk about the big challenges connected to solidarity. What is it? What do you think? Is it climate change? Yeah, that's really their thing. Can I have a short showing hands? Okay. Yeah, huge topic. We're talking about connection. Is it peace? Oh, we're talking about big concepts this time. Okay. Yes. So obviously a lot of them. It was also mentioned society. So is it maybe an increasing exclusion in our societies? Is this considered to be the main challenge? Nodding, showing hands. Okay. Yes. Is it maybe in general also this societal cohesion? I can see people nodding, showing hands. So actually, it's really difficult to talk about the main challenge, isn't it? It's just like a big, fully big topic, and looking at it from different perspectives and different challenges, and all of them have to be tackled. So it's quite a task for us. So maybe we can go on with this topic.
Adding on to this, in Finland at the moment we're talking about the triple crisis. It's the environment, COVID, and the war, and anything related to that. So it's kind of like a real challenge for our time. So the 2020 seemed to be like the decade of crisis, and it is again a challenge for solidarity in terms of like how do we prioritize things, or do we have to prioritize things, or can we tackle them all at once? I suppose the show of hands shows that everyone kind of agrees that we have big challenges and everyone is needed to solve them. We can't just wait for the other. Like Sara was saying, that it can't be, oh, it's somewhere else, it's not here. So I suppose we really need everyone to be involved, both on the grassroots level and also on the decision-making level, and they need to go hand in hand, like it was pointed out already. But this brings us to actually looking at possibilities and also not necessarily solutions, that is a big word, but what are your thoughts on how do we go about, jumping to solve these challenges, or, finding ways to live with them? So, what are in your opinion, what are the key possibilities in solidarity related to what was just said? Thinking about all this, the potential of solidarity as well. So, Sara, would you like to go first?
Yes, you said good at the connection, but I think it's solidarity is a good term because it's very connected, and the main reasons for the second reasons and like this, and because our biggest problems that climate crisis and biodiversity and like these are very connected, and if we see the COVID, we think that it's big problem, but it's a reason for the environment, and it's sorry, but it's not our last pandemic if we don't do something. And I think it's my reasons that I think the solidarity is very, very important issue, but it's good then for describe this word. We need solidarity, of course, if we want to solve our time's biggest problems, and it's we need it. But I think that solidarity is as well is our system works and how our law support our society and what we do, our governments are like this. But it's also what we do when we see the people, when we see the nature. If you think that the human is the biggest or it's part of nature, or I think it's the very good questions and something that we need to talk about more and in our society and the connection between the part of very solved solidarity. Yes.
Excellent points. Katja, what do you think?
I just don't know where to start. There's just so much.
Easy question.
Yeah, no problem. So just a few things. I'd like to return to the topic of Roma for a second, and then to something that Sarah has said. To the question of what are the possibilities in solidarity, I think part of what we were discussing is the opportunity of reconceptualizing something. And it's a possibility, a huge challenge, and also a lot of responsibility, in fact, how we do that. And we need to do it right. And from the example of Roma, what we see is that this trans-border solidarity movement was trying to achieve two goals. One is to unite very diverse people with different languages, with living in different societies, different cultures, and even in terms of languages. We do think now, and even at the level of the European Union, there's a Romani or Romanes language, but in fact they speak very different dialogues, and some don't speak Romani dialect, they speak the Boyash dialect. But anyway, so the diversity, very extensive diversity of the Roma people, nevertheless, had to, you need to create a platform to which all of them can affiliate. And I'm not saying that all of them do. This is a process that has started, but we can learn from that process. So on the one hand, there's the possibility of uniting very diverse set of peoples. On the other hand, the opportunity there was to unite beyond the Roma and include everyone else in a fight towards or against discrimination, in a fight to create just societies, in a fight to gain alliances or sympathetic, really, groups that can affiliate, empathize, and join this cause. And this unifying power, in my opinion, needs to be a lot stronger than it is now, because more and more people need to be included into the space, because, again, it is about the same principles that we've discussed earlier. But to the Roma movement, it has maybe even a more of a significance, because this is a process through which there's a goal of also building a positive identity, right? Against the stereotypes of what it means to be a Roma, what the label of gypsy, right, it means, or how it is used. Now there is a process of recreating that, reconceptualizing that into something that is more powerful, an identity that is positive, an identity that is rooted in European culture. And if you actually look at how it is happening through trans-border organizations, actually operating at the level of the European Union or regionally, the discourse, the narrative, very often evokes European values, European history, to which Roma are an integral part of. So these two dual goals, I would call them, is something that we can also learn from. We do the same thing. We want to reconceptualize of who we are, create a new narrative about who we are, and at the same time, we want to look back at the past and try to learn from it. If we can do it better this time, and I think how we do it better relates to something that Sarah said, and you said it so modestly, so I'm just going to repeat what she said and think about it together with you. And you said that solidarity, we think about solidarity as something between humans. And allow me another criticism. we are human-centric and we tend to be also Eurocentric. And how the two relates in my head is that there are many societies that think about solidarity, not the way we do, solidarity between people. And I know that's all I talked about, so thank you, Sarah, for pointing out that this is not the only way to think about it. And we can look at many, I don't even want to call them necessarily native cultures, they don't have to be native cultures, any cultures that tend to be, or many of them, some of them are outside of Europe. Hence we don't learn about them, hence we don't hear about them, unfortunately, but there's so much to learn. And these societies actually have an understanding about solidarity that is a lot more comprehensive than ours. So when we do this reimagining, this can be part of it. It should be, it must be part of it. How we think about who we are must be contextualized in the nature, the environment that we live in. Even if we live in urban surroundings, it doesn't mean that the environment is something we can disassociate from our everyday life. It just means that the environment has to be associated maybe through a different terms, through a different narrative. And this is where I see, even though I'm a very big proponent of bottom-up movements, but this is where some of the top-down maybe narrative creation come into can do good work, is to create that narrative. How do we relate to the environment in the most constructive way if we live in an urban environment? And most of Europe does live in an urban environment. So how do we connect our trans-border solidarity at the level of the European Union with something that is sustainable and with something that is environmentally friendly? And then all of us can then do this imagining of who we are in relation to each other and in relation to our environment and society we live in.
Brilliant. Anna, what does this bring to your mind?
Yes, I like very much this, what you just said about this creation of narratives in terms of creating like a solidarity. And me as a educator and working also with youth workers and with young people on their own like a solidarity projects, I would like to see more and more possibility in solidarity within the youth work. So I would like to see more and more the youth work as a catalyst of solidarity. Youth work as an ongoing action of creation of a narrative related to solidarity. Because this is what I'm trying to find out. What is the place of solidarity in youth work, for example, here in Finland? How does the concept exist within the structure of youth work, and to what extent? Of course, solidarity exists in the framework of youth work and its ethics, values, principles related to human rights, participations, democratic values, and etc., etc. So yes, but do we really like use the word solidarity with young people? Because this is how this narrative can be like maintained. If we really use the word and the concepts, of course, connected to that. So I see possibilities that because maybe that's why, as I said at the beginning, when we reached out, youth workers, youth counselors, they didn't believe that their young people can lead solidarity projects because maybe they don't use the word solidarity with their own work with young people. So I see that there is a need for methods for youth workers to support processes where young people can explore issues important to them and show solidarity in action. So we need somehow to improve maybe youth work, quality of youth work that enable youth-led solidarity action. So in order to that, we need to provide like a youth works. We need to provide space for this solidarity in action, and it requires also skills to foster solidarity among young people. I was just wondering, and now I maybe it's just a speculation, but about how this solidarity concept, the word itself, how does it exist in societies. I have just learned, when it comes to the solidarity projects, I have just learned that in Poland, in the second round, they received like 78 solidarity projects, which is the highest number in Europe. And then what came to my mind, is it possible that because in Poland the concept of solidarity and the history connected to solidarity, as we know in 80s, this social movement led by Lech Wałęsa, and the change, what happened, what forced the change, workers and to change in the society. Can it be one of the reasons that it's the thinking of the solidarity is like in the society? But I don't know, of course we need research, it's just a speculation, but this is what came immediately to my mind when I learned that this number was highest in Europe.
Thank you, very interesting perspective. Actually, now what I'm hearing is that we need interconnectedness, not only between humans, but also with the nature, and again, keeping everyone on board. And maybe we need like roundtable discussions on what is solidarity. I mean, maybe the reason why it's not used is because it's a very abstract concept. That has been said several times during this conference already, that understanding what it truly means, what does it mean to me, so I can pass it forward. Because I mean, if a youth worker doesn't know what solidarity actually means, what does it mean to me? What does it mean to my immediate surrounding? This is really difficult to pass it on, and then understanding it in different contexts. I think we need to talk about it more. I mean, everybody should talk about it. So it should be the hot topic of coffee table discussions. What does solidarity mean to you? I invite everyone over there at home or in the office to talk about this as well. But now it's time to get some questions from the audience. I see a lot of heads, buzzing with all these questions. So Elizabeth will take the microphone and pass it to the floor, and we'll get some questions for the panelists. So you can either direct the questions to one of the panelists or all of them, and we'll have plenty of time for several questions from the floor. And also, online viewers, please do use the possibility to ask questions from the chat, so we can use them as well. So, Elizabeth, here you go.
Okay, and I already saw one hand raising right and left, and then...
Okay, thank you. My name is Nadine. Thanks for this really interesting panel. I would like to say also thanks to Sarah for pointing out that aspect of solidarity with nature. Just a comment on that. Earlier on today, we heard from Pete that in order to show solidarity with someone, we need to ask, you need help. So unfortunately, we don't have that shared language with animals, with nature. So just a comment. In that case, we have to, I guess, do two things. The first thing is listen to the science, because science is the shared language we have with nature. And the second one is empathy. It already started, I think, back with Marx's theory, the disconnection from nature of humanity through industrialization. So just creating more empathy and exposing ourselves more to nature. So really, thank you for that. And then, Jekatyerina, I've listened to your Europe Talk Solidarity podcast some time ago. It was really great. I can only recommend it to everyone. And I had already a question about that back then, and I'm so glad that I can now ask you personally. So you have been specializing on transporter solidarity. My question is, are we talking about a global level? Or are we talking about mainly transporter solidarity within Europe, between the borders of different EU member states, which I think is already a topic we were talking about? Can we have many identities at the same time? For me, that's like already quite obvious. Yes, we can. And then luckily we have cooperations with, for example, Georgia, Turkey, other non-EU countries. And my question would be actually for everyone. Would you be generally in favor, if there were the resources, I can't say if it's financially feasible, to expand the ESC globally so that we can really talk about transporter solidarity? I would like to just give a personal example. I see now for the first time EU, let's say on a political level, the racism that goes towards third country nationals. My boyfriend is Mexican, and we've been here for 5 weeks now, and getting any chance for him to stay is a nightmare. And it would be so beautiful for him to, for example, experience the ESC, but he can't. So what do you all think? Do you think it's possible? Do you think it's a good idea? Maybe with a temperature check or something? Yes, more or less. But of course, I would love to hear the expert's opinion on that. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you want to start, Katja?
Yeah, but I would also, that's a great question. I would also love to hear others' opinions. Those who said yeah, which I now know means yes, or those who didn't, because this is a very important question. And I don't have a good answer, so I will have to disappoint you maybe, but I can talk, so I will, a little bit about, some of the thoughts. But in my personal opinion, we will have to eventually expand our solidarity into what beyond the EU. Maybe with the caveat that until we can build some solidarity amongst ourselves, how do we expand beyond that, or how do we build bridges? But I think it's unavoidable. And unless we start thinking that way, it will be hard. Because I work with Roma, I also work with a lot of non-Roma who tell me all kinds of issues and problems they have with Roma. And I usually say that, at this point, it's not about feelings. You have to find a common ground. You don't have an option. And I think about us as humanity, or humans, or people living on this planet, that eventually we will not have a choice, and we will have to start negotiating. And environment is actually a great case to look at, because yes, pollution in one country will not stop at the border. So do you like your neighbor? Do you not like your neighbor? You have to start negotiating, because if you don't, and it is solidarity to some extent. Solidarity, as we talked earlier, does not mean one has to strip some of their ideals, values. It's coming to an understanding on some points, whatever those some points are. And if we start coming to an understanding about environment, then we can expand and look into, how about inequality? How about other values? What is it that we can all agree on, and start building mutual cooperation around that issue? And I think, again, looking at what is happening in the world right now, we're coming to the point that this is not sustainable, what's happening right now. We need to talk to each other. We need to somehow build bridges to make sure that the world does not get into the chaos that we are seeing right now. And in no way do I know how to do that. But those people who do, hopefully, are responsible for making decisions. I don't know. But what I said earlier, too, is learning from each other. And I find it so important. Teaching in actually various universities, I see that there's very little that we have access to in terms of non-Western knowledge. And it's a pity. It's a pity, because how else do we access that information? I know one can get out of their way and try to look for it, and maybe some people do, but overall, and I'm talking about generalized knowledge that we teach, that is part of your curriculum when you go to school, it tends to be rather narrow. And it's a very hard change to make, right? Because most of the education actually is state-governed curricula that is very, very much top-down. And there's actually, in most of the countries, little negotiation or flexibility that the schools have. So, again, these are issues that we don't necessarily have maybe a solution now, but starting this conversation is important. And my last comment, really, is even identities, right, what we talked about, and how to build solidarity. I really like the personal example that you shared about your boyfriend, and I feel like many of us can think about these examples. So even thinking about ourselves as European, this is fuzzy. There's no such thing as a well-defined identity. I struggle with it. I just had a book published, not commercial, just saying. And the first chapter of the book, I had to talk about identity. Because there's such a thing in academia as being self-reflexive. And I would love to do that, but we use categories. And we are in a very global world right now in which these categories might not make much sense. Some of you might ask, where am I from? I never know how to answer. But then I know people expect a short answer, a country or a nationality. And then I start explaining my life and they get bored, and so I don't answer that question. But this I think is becoming more and more of a reality. My husband's Canadian. I was born in Russia. I grew up in Hungary, and I was naturalized in America. So my children don't have a nationality either, and they struggle with it because they go to kindergarten, and every time they, hear that you need to learn more Hungarian, stop, speaking other languages. But they're like, how do I do that? So I think this is more and more fuzzy, being, I don't know, Hungarian, Romanian, Polish, European, and the more we realize also that our fates on a very personal level is connected to the fates of other people. It might be the environment, but it might be just personal connections. Everybody probably knows somebody. Maybe you've been volunteering for some organizations. I really loved Anna's comment too about borders, who we allow in, who do we not allow in, who do we empathize with. So this is pushing our understanding of these categories that we use so freely and don't really question, don't really problematize. Is this something that is obsolete by now? Is this something that maybe needs to be rethought a little bit in a more kind of cohesive way? And I love that we have this discussion right now, because it's just food for thought without really an end goal, like we're not going to solve it now, but what we can do is recognize some of the issues and take a step towards thinking further.
Thank you. Is there other questions?
I think we might hear Anna, Sara?
I can just add to that, because you said it's absolutely fantastic what you had just said, but and I would like to say that yes, there is a great a need for this change, that I believe that one day it will happen, because this is what we need, is also I would say to maybe we had during our previous activity, we had this question card, and one question was about that Europe is visible when, something like this. So we were discussing with someone that we wish that Europe maybe somehow would be less visible and less Eurocentric in terms of solidarity. And maybe it requires also that we should decolonize also our concept of solidarity in terms of inclusion, and in terms of this common understanding, and in terms of what you said, that how we are open towards them who have different values and beliefs, and of course this border questions, and etc. etc. So this is what I found also very, very important, and thank you for this question.
Yes, you said it so good that I am not the same, but one point from the earlier, I think it's the solidarity is very, very political issue. It's not only the values and the coffee table discussion and like this, yes, but it's very political, and I think it's our mission to bring the solidarity to political and decision making on the parliaments and like this.
Thank you. So, sorry for interrupting, but there is other questions. I saw you before.
Thank you. I actually have a comment, not a question, but I will finish with a question, so you're not disappointed. But yeah, I would like to reflect on the topic of who we let in and who we don't let in concerning the also situation of Polish borders, because you kind of forced me to reflection on that. Well, I don't know if everybody knows about the situation. I'm Iga, I'm from Poland. The situation on the Polish borders. Well, the war of Ukraine. Okay, you are all aware of that. What's happening? But last year in summer in Poland, we had on the Polish-Belarusian border, we have kind of maybe a strategy of Russian totalitarian regime in Belarusian to bring refugees on the border and force them to legally or illegally cross the border. And there was really thousands, hundreds of thousands of people on the border. And the strategy of our government was just to push them back. Yeah, so to do pushbacks, not to take the asylum documents from them, just take them back to the forest and force them to go back to Belarus. Yeah, That's what happened, and that was the point that Anna was reflecting to. That now the government opened the doors for the refugees from Ukraine, but just last year, actually it's still happening. It didn't finish. Just a few months ago, they were pushing back the refugees. Those were refugees from Asia, from Asia mainly, Pakistan and other countries. So culturally further than Ukraine. But I don't think this is the problem here. I think the problem is totally somewhere in a different place, because our government, they don't care about any refugees. They don't care about Ukrainian refugees as well. But just the problem is maybe so close that they have to react. It's forced them to react. The strategy of our government, Polish government, was to kind of divide the society, and they used the migrants, refugees for many years just to divide people and scare people, because it's easy for populists to win elections if you have an enemy. So that's kind of in the head of our governments, our politicians. That was the role of refugees. And I just think now the situation is politically so difficult that they don't have any other way to react. If they could, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't let refugees in. But I think where is the difference of the attitude is that the society actually worked in both situations. So the civil society, showed solidarity, both concerning the problem with refugees on the Belarusian border, and also now. Now we have 3 million of refugees in Poland, and we don't have refugee camps, not because the government organized it so well, but because the civil society organized it so well together with the local governments. During the crisis with the Belarusian border, the situation was actually the same. The civil society worked. The government just didn't give the opportunity to help better. But the civil society was in the forests on the border, having food, warm clothes, because it was winter as well, having food, warm clothes, medical support. Also, it was the citizens who were keeping the refugees at their homes. When they actually crossed the border illegally, because they couldn't cross it legally because they were pushed back by Polish border guards. So I think the problem is not. I think it's more a conflict that Lori actually mentioned yesterday. That in Finland, the state is kind of working well, and the solidarity of the state is big, but the society doesn't care. So I think this is a totally opposite situation in Poland. So the government they don't care. But the society does, and. I think it's a positive thing. I don't know, but I think it's not the worst thing that could happen. But it's also a really pity that we really have to learn those values, that you really have to realize those values in such a crisis situations. It's also we in Poland, now we have a lot of more democratic movements, but they started in 2015 when the democratic system started to collapse. So kind of a society that learns in crises. I think that's maybe the overview of the situation. Sorry for speaking so long, but I will finish with a question which is totally not connected with the reflection on immigration. But I can continue Nadine's topic of making the European Solidarity Corps program a little bit better or different. I would like to open the topic of doing the program available for people every age, not only for young people, because I think we're missing a program for that. So that's maybe a question and reflection to you. What do you think about that? Thanks.
Does anyone want to answer that? Just quickly, very briefly.
Maybe just one person.
Yeah.
I'm not very competent.
So yes, I agree totally. I agree totally, and in terms of equality, of course, opening the program for people in different ages, I think it would be something great. This is all what I can say right now. So absolutely yes.
Yes, all of us would say so. Yes.
Okay. Are you raising your hands for a question? So I go on. That's fine for you. Thanks for the interesting comment, by the way.
Thank you for the nice comment, because it was very interesting. And linked with her intervention, I would like to mention 2 points. The first one related to solidarity in the state level. Someone posted in one of the white pages that Next Generation is a magnificent example of solidarity. It has been developed since July 2020. And here we are in Finland speaking about solidarity. Finland, together with Austria or Netherlands, they were governments against creating this solidarity instrument. So I am surprised that we are able to bring solidarity when the crisis appears. It is not by nature or because we want it. It's because, you know, people is pushing us then, the governments, to really be solidar in a certain moment because, you know, crisis is there. We have solidarity when appears a child dying on the coast of Greece, and then we say, come on, 1 million of refugees, but no, when there is a moment to create a migration system that really shares responsibility, burdens between the member states. That's, I mean, when we are here discussing citizens, where the politicians are. Where are those who take decisions in the European Union institutions, and they really need to take inside solidarity. Like, having in mind is not thinking only in the national interest, is thinking in the interest of the European Union itself, in the values, in the principles in which the Union is rooted. And another point about the climate change, and I think it's very important. We also, how the Swedish youngster Greta Thunberg moved and opened a way of, you know, doing things. But what happens with that solidarity movement that across Europe, like, open our eyes? Then suddenly, yeah, we are living in the age of Instagram that pass the picture and then we forget about it. Starts a new conflict and we are focusing on Russia. But the climate change is being there. What is going to happen when, you know, plastics coming from the other side of the world come to the Baltic Sea and we see the plastics here? I really understand that we need to help those countries who are undeveloped or they need the tools to fight the climate change and this pollution, because otherwise, you know, we will suffer this global change, and that only is going to be done through solidarity. If we are unable to build that solidarity for us, how are we supposed to help others? The first thing, build it inside, and also together help others to achieve what the goals we are looking in the long term. I would say also solidarity needs to have in mind that aspect. Thank you.
Do you want to reflect on that?
I just want to have a comment here.
Yes, please do.
I mean, it's very important, but let me just problematize one thing, because when you say, let's do it ourselves and then help others, for example, I actually teach a course on global environmental problems, waste trade, if you are familiar with, especially plastic, but other garbage being exported from rich countries to poor countries. That is, so when we talk about help, to me, at least, again, on the level of discourse, means that we need to figure out how to do it, and then we teach or help others. But in fact, we also see a lot of the problems of the rich countries being pushed onto the rest of the world. And this is global thinking that we talked about earlier a little bit too. Environment, yet again, is not a question that we can think of nationally, locally, even regionally. We have to think globally. So how and what do we do with that? And again, I don't have any solutions, but this is an important problem, not much talked about problem. How do you get countries to ratify? I mean, you know, I'm not going to name countries here, but you can look it up. What are the countries that tend not to ratify environmental treaties? They are well-off countries. They generate a lot of waste. That waste goes to the poor countries. So it might seem like, why do poor countries have so much garbage? But part of it is not theirs. This is partly garbage that is pushed onto that part of the world because they need money. Rich countries have the money. They can afford basically selling their garbage to poor countries. So I think it's a very important point, and we just get back to the same thing of what do we do? How do we deal with this? And, you know, to me, of course, the first step is let's educate ourselves. Let's understand what the problem is, on what levels this problem operates. And then when we have a comprehensive knowledge, and as we talked earlier, maybe not only a Eurocentric knowledge, but an overall understanding, a scientific understanding. And somebody said that, right? That we need to listen to scientists. We need to be aware, because sometimes scientists talk, we just don't listen. And that's also understandable, right? I mean, we're busy people and we don't have time, but, you know, Twitter, I agree with that too. Images, we don't read, we look at, and not we here, I'm just broadly speaking. So this dissemination, communication, accessible knowledge, open access knowledge is actually a big movement now, right? Because knowledge is not open access. How interesting. You have to pay 40, 50 euros to have access. And I just saw to have access for 48 hours to an academic article. That is nonsense, in my opinion. I mean, I understand why that is happening, but this also would assist us to have reliable understanding, reliable data in order to be able to take a position, right, on these questions. And until then, and I always say it in class too, when there's a question and somebody says, I'm not sure about my opinion because I don't think I have all the facts, to me that sounds very intelligent. People are really afraid nowadays to say, I don't know, because it seems like they don't have the knowledge, but it's fine. It just means that you thrive for having the knowledge, and you actually understand that without the full comprehension of the issue, it's hard to formulate a knowledge or an opinion about it, and I think that's great. So say you don't know more often. Say one more. Sorry, Sarah.
Okay, running out of time again. So, but that's a good sign probably because there's a lot of communication and discussion going on. So yes, one more question, and there were two, but so I'll pass it.
Thank you. So I'm Dennis from Belgium. Thank you for your sharings. It's a good point that it's a women panel. So one of my questions it would be, what is the place of women in solidarity and in the climate movement? And also thinking about, I disagree a little bit with the fact that science is only our main language, because I think to change the story, we must change the narratives. And I'm working to make relevant indigenous knowledge in the academic world, but in an indigenous perspective, not with our Western glasses. So that's it. Thank you.
That's great. We do this.
So yes, about the role and of women in solidarity. So I can give a great example. In general, when we work with groups of young people on their solidarity projects, I have to share that now the greatest a part of the projects are led by young women. So it tells a lot about we were talking that maybe with our participants we were talking about the one tool and also core of the solidarity is this empathy. So could it be the answer that maybe this is something what the young women, and they were also saying that they have this a strong need and feeling of empathy toward others, and they want to share also solutions, how they can be with others, how they can support others and carry out this solidarity project with others based on the empathy and empathic listening, which is based on our discussion with young people. This empathic listening was the one very important part of the concept of solidarity. And we were also talking in the morning that this is this question, what we don't know all the answers, but we have the power and possibility to ask what do you need and how we can be together with you. So this is about this empathy, and we are talking with our young women participants that this is what they want to share also with the others within the solidarity projects. So.
Thank you very much for very good questions and comments from the audience. I'm now somehow thinking about what the stuff that has been mentioned, like the power of empathy. Maybe empathy should be the superpower that we should all strive for. We've also talked about how solidarity is a bit selective at times. I mean, we tend to choose where to show solidarity to, and whether we can expand that and, you know, unlearn from the, you know, being that selective at times. But I think a lot of the stuff that has been said has brought a lot of thoughts to our participants, and we will continue with these discussions later on. But just to round up our panel, I always want to end everything with a glimpse of hope, because there's nothing without hope. I think hope is what needs to be there in order for us to survive, right? So just a final round for our wonderful panelists. I would like to ask you, what gives you hope in terms of solidarity today or in the future, you know, relating to stuff that you've heard now? What gives you hope? Anna, would you like to start?
Yes, I can start. So as I said, as you know, we are working with young people. So of course, youth is the hope. And we in the Peace Education Institute, we don't say about the empowering youth, because we recognize that youth and people that we have already the power. So the main point is not to empower, but to recognize this power, and we believe in it, and this is the hope, like, for the future. And of course, we find it also in peace education, which is crucial, and it should be the part of this non-formal learning, the part of youth work. That kind of like building this narrative, building this, I would say, the culture of solidarity within youth activities and youth work, and also the peace building process. You know, there is this negative and positive peace. This negative peace as an absence of violence, and positive peace, the absence of violence, also presence of reconciliation, coexistence, harmony, and base of human rights and justice and solidarity. We see and we understand as a vital achievement of positive peace. So this is what we should promote. We should work on this peace building also with the. Like especially with the young people and the structure of youth work.
Katja.
Thank you for forcing us to think positively. It's always important because, you know, we tend to be pessimistic, which is not surprising. Okay, so what gives me hope, and I brought you a few quotes from students over the years. I usually talk to them about various issues, partly solidarity, partly European Union, what it means. And as you know, Hungary doesn't get a good reputation lately. But in fact, the bad reputation is based on, and I think, again, you all said it on the example of Poland too, we look at actions by, you know, usually the political elite, but what is happening in the society, in the civil society, that is always something that, again, is not knowledge that is shared so widely. It's not secret or anything, but we just don't know about it. So I brought a few quotes from students who are in their late teens, early 20s, and they're answering the question about what is the European Union to them. And they say, "To me, the European Union means my European home. We can learn together about other cultures, explore new places, and aspire towards a better future together." Another one, "To me, the EU means peace and friendship. Through coexistence in the EU, we'll learn how to be empathetic to others. EU is the future. To me, EU is freedom. It's a safe space. It means harmonious integration, but not only of countries, but also of cultures and nations." And now, if you say, well, is that biased because I'm only reading the good stuff? That's true. But that is to show that the process we're talking about now has already started. because the results are exactly what we were talking about. They never said, I'm afraid to lose my Hungarian identity because now I'm forced to be European. But in fact, they see it as what they said, harmonious. And I really like that somebody pointed out that this is not only integration of countries, but it's integration of cultures. And that is the transborder nature of it, because we can see beyond national boundaries that blind us to certain issues, right? Because that prioritizes certain pieces of information that is relevant for us as nations, but maybe less relevant for us as humans just living on this planet. So yes, there were comments that, you know, were comparing the European Union to turtles. That was my favorite one. So this is, of course, not the exclusive opinion, but to me, this is always a positive element of learning how the young generation, I'm not too far from the young generation, but there's still, you know, it's interesting just to constantly see and hear and understand that these messages, and again, what's interesting here is that for them, they were born, or many of them, in the 2000s, they didn't know their country outside of the European Union. So this is becoming a new normal, so to say, that you grow up in the European Union is something that is granted. Of course, we also know it's not very good to take things for granted. It's good to make these platforms work for you and work for the causes that we all establish as important. And I think this is one of the most important takeaway messages, at least for me, from our meeting, is that this is very, and thank you, somebody pointed out where the politicians, I don't know if this is going to be a rapporteur or making a report. I really hope that these voices will be collected together, even if it's a collective format, but something that is communicated further, that these are standpoints that are very important to bring further and to incorporate into our thinking. So thank you all.
Thank you. Sara?
Yes, I said earlier that the youth movement gives me hope, and that is true. I also think that we are here, it gives me hope. I think everyone in this room is a signal of hope for own country, a movement, or whatever, and that is very important that we talk about, but I trust that we also act, and it's important.
Thank you. Well said. Thank you so much. I mean, at least I feel hopeful, because that's what we're here for. That, I think, hope brought us here. Don't you think? Who agrees? Yeah. We are the ones who want to make the change. I mean, the old wisdom of being the change you want to see, I think, applies to this thing as well. Thank you so much, Anna, Katja, and Sara, for joining our panel. I think we should give a huge round of applause for our wonderful panel. Thank you for the wonderful questions from the audience, and also thank you so much for the online viewers. I would like to remind our online viewers that tomorrow we will continue with another wonderful stream at 8 o'clock Central European time, 9 o'clock Finnish time, so it's excellent entertainment for breakfast time for those watching from the CET time zone countries, or even earlier than that, because we will have Tommi Laitio and Sophie Ponschlager talking to us about the future, really looking at beyond 2022 all the way towards the future, and also really looking at the hope perspective. So please tune in tomorrow for the stream as well. But I would like to now thank the online viewers, and hope to see you online tomorrow again.